Chapter 53. 2 o'clock in the morning. The sound of dripping water on the floor, the sound of marbles rolling down from the ceiling. Siddle hid in the narrow partition. Through the crack of the door she caught a glimpse of a pair of red shoes lingering in front of the door for a while, along with the sound of heavy footsteps. The deep breathing seemed to be close to her ears. Siddle suppressed a yawn, anxiously staring at the pair of red shoes outside the door. It had been 10 minutes, why hadn't she left yet? The intense drowsiness made her eyelashes tremble non-stop. She began to think about why she appeared in the school's specimen room in the middle of the night. Oh, so it was because of this bad game. Siddle silently lowered her head, staring at the game icon on the mobile phone screen, unable to help but curse in her heart. On the first day after discovering the appearance of the noises, Siddle had no choice but to reopen the game. This time, the game appeared directly on her mobile phone. Siddle skillfully controlled the pixel character in the game to pass each level. However, she was stuck before the final level. The game required collecting 7 props to be able to fight the boss. The 7 props were placed separately on the lamp in the spiral corridor of the school, the sack in the iron mesh corridor, the faucet in the toilet, the bottle in the specimen room, the incense burner in the morgue, the bookshelf in the library, and the chair in the cell. Siddle also did not understand why the school had a morgue. But every night, under the influence of the game, this school seemed to change into a different form. It would turn into an old, deserted hospital full of blood stains. All kinds of ghosts and demons wandered in the hospital. They appeared on the way to get the props and became Siddle's obstacles. Now it was the 3rd day. Siddle had been wandering around this hospital that was always immersed in darkness with the ghosts for 3 days. She now had 6 props. The red shoes outside the door had finally left. The girl who had been overcome by sleepiness and had dark circles under her eyes finally breathed a sigh of relief. She peeked through the crack of the door, then opened the door without hesitation, her movements as skillful as flowing clouds and water. She took the props in the corner, then turned and ran away. No one knew what she had gone through in the past 3 days to be able to perform such heartbreaking movements. Encountering an obstacle at the corner, Siddle skillfully squatted down, successfully escaping thanks to the cover of the terrain. When she opened the door, she saw the ghost. Siddle quickly hid in the closet. When the ghost with poor eyesight was hovering around, she decisively opened the door and ran out. After successfully returning to the dormitory, Siddle breathed a sigh of relief. The prop she had just obtained disappeared the moment it fell into her hands, appearing in the game from reality. But now, Siddle no longer had the strength to enter the game. She tiredly rubbed her eyes, laid her head on the pillow and fell asleep. The 4th day. In a corner of the library, scattered sunlight shone through the glass onto the floor, leaving only a dark corner. Jacqueline glanced over worriedly. A little girl with messy blonde hair stuck to her cheeks, a few red marks on her soft white face, dark circles under her eyes, a gloomy expression, long eyelashes drooping down to hide the emotions in her eyes. The little girl tried to endure, but in the end she couldn't bear it anymore and walked over with a book in her arms. She saw the books scattered on her roommate's desk, which had no sunlight. The book that seemed to be flipped through the most was Learn Japanese in 90 Days, the rest were all books like Game Engine Structure, Windows Game Programming, and Effective STL. Jacqueline. Siddle was opening her laptop, her slender fingers nimbly tapping on the keyboard, seemingly chatting with someone. It wasn't until Jacqueline walked in front of her that Siddle, who was engrossed in the computer screen, raised his head slightly and glanced at the girl standing on the other side of the round wooden table. "What's the matter?" she asked curtly in an indifferent tone. Jacqueline was choked by her attitude, and replied in annoyance, "I just came to see if you died suddenly because you've been staying up late lately." As she spoke, Jacqueline glanced at the book on Siddle's desk again. "Are you learning game programming?" "It has nothing to do with you." Siddle looked up at Jacqueline, thought for a few seconds, and then seriously warned her, "You'd better stay away from me recently." Although Jacqueline had entered the game with her, she was the host chosen by the game, so Jacqueline couldn't see the ghosts that appeared in the real world due to the curse. She also didn't suffer the curse after 7 days. But Siddle was different. Jacqueline looked at Siddle with an innocent expression in front of her eyes, and was suddenly startled. They're appearing again? Siddle's fingertips tapped on the keyboard, and she calmly replied, yes. Then she received Jacqueline's horrified reaction, so now you. She couldn't control her voice, so her voice was a bit loud, attracting the strange looks of many people around her. Siddle calmly glanced at the ghosts that occasionally lurked outside the floor-to-ceiling window. It's no big deal. Jacqueline wanted to add that she knew that Siddle was targeted by Slender Man because of her, and that it was also because she wanted to escape Slender Man that she had to step into that strange world. But these words were interrupted by Siddle. Seeing that Jacqueline had good intentions and cared about her, Siddle rarely spoke gently to her, so, don't come near me now. That's bad luck. She raised her head and smiled, her tone gentle, but her blue eyes did not change, cold as a pool of ice water. Siddle was feeling very frustrated now. Even though since she was 7 years old, this world had become more and more ghoulish, from perverted murderers to psychopaths, to dolls possessed by ghosts, and a suburban bungalow covered in blood, Siddle originally thought she was used to it. But, 3 days. Did this game know that she hadn't had enough sleep for 3 days? No one knew how she had spent these 3 days. Siddle had been tortured for 3 days, from standing up in shock when she saw the demons to skillfully escaping from them without changing her expression. She even stayed up all night for nearly 3 days to clear the levels in the game. However, she had just collected all the props and entered the final level, only to discover that this was a game that was set to end in death. Siddle, A. She suppressed her anger and tried to calm down. Then she resolutely exited the game, loaded it onto her computer, and went to borrow a bunch of game programming textbooks. By the way, since the native language of this game was Japanese, after leaving the Freya village created by Asahi and losing the support of her mind, Siddle, who didn't understand Japanese, could only rely on translation software to learn and practice in the game while painfully reenacting the live-action version of the demon battle in real life. Then she struggled for 3 days only to find out that the ending in the game was death. The person carrying the grudge in the game was still a little girl, but no matter how hard Siddle tried to persuade her, it still turned into a ghost and chased the game character in a field. Its speed became faster and faster. Siddle could only exit the game before it caught up with the character she controlled. Either be killed in the game, or wait 7 days after the curse fell and be killed in reality. Siddle suppressed her irritability, thought for a few seconds, then stood up, choosing the third path. She decided to learn programming right now. Even if she couldn't delete it, she would have to modify the data of this trashy game. She told the boss spirit that there was still true love in the world, the mistake was that this world wasn't it. The boss's soul told her, I don't listen, even if I find myself in hell, I will have to drag you all to hell with me. Siddle was so tired, she didn't want to talk about true love with that damn thing anymore. Now she just wanted to modify her character to be invincible, maximize her health and combat power, and then use a Gatling gun to kill it. After reading for 2 hours, Siddle tried to open the game's source code, and when she discovered that the base file could actually be modified, she wiped away her previous gloom and irritation, and her blue eyes lit up in an instant. Great! If a horror game could modify files, would it still be a horror game? Give her a gun, and add a health bar to the enemy asterisk, then wouldn't the one who should run away be the boss's disobedient spirit? Asterisk add health bar, a character, usually an NPC, that was set to be invulnerable would gain an additional health bar and become a character that could be affected by other characters. If the boss didn't like to listen to advice, then she wouldn't lecture it anymore. For things like this, it was better to be ruthless and kill it. Siddle then looked at the unfamiliar code that filled the screen, and fell into deep thought again. However, learning how to fix games in a few days seemed a bit reluctant. She thought for a few seconds and then resolutely went online to ask for help. How to modify the background data code is very important, there is a fee, the price is high. Contact information, email XXXXX. About half an hour later, she received a reply message, which was the address of a website. Siddle hesitated for a moment and then clicked on it. This was a website with a dark background. New questions were posted from time to time. Siddle noticed that it was divided into categories. She didn't look carefully and just chose the urgent option and described her problem. In the very visible black-boxed subject line, Siddle thought for a moment and then slowly filled in a line of text. High price, urgent, life-threatening, think carefully before accepting the order, must be completed before midnight tonight. There was also a column below that looked very professional. Siddle recalled the balance on his card and generously entered 4 zeros. $50,000. The storm came at the wrong time. Several burly men rushed into an internet cafe, said a few words to the woman holding a cigarette at the front desk, and walked inside. The internet cafe was very dilapidated. The window in the corner was half broken, and had not been repaired yet. But there was a person sitting there. The tiny raindrops outside the window splashed on his face, and the damp smell filled his nose. He pulled his hood over his head, his face gloomy, but he did not leave. Because the smell of cigarette smoke in other places was really a bit strong. He was surfing a website on an old computer. The cursor stopped at a post. 50,000, too much. The young man slowly looked down, his fingers in his pocket moving slightly, remembering the empty wallet in his equally empty backpack, clacking the lollipop in his mouth. He clicked on the post. Siddle received a reply a few minutes after posting. She happily opened her message box and saw that the person who sent her the message had an unrecognizable dark profile picture. Location, personal information, any other requests. Siddle. What was this person saying? She curiously clicked on the profile picture and found that this person's personal page had no posts. Next to the ID there was a number that seemed to represent the level. 7. Siddle didn't know what he was asking. She thought for a moment and then seriously replied. Hello, I want to fix the game, can you fix it? In the internet cafe. The young man in the black hoodie. After sending the message, he saw the detailed job description below. Need to fix a game, urgent order, hope to fix it before midnight tonight. Then he received a message from the employer. Seeing that the employer's message seemed to be seriously asking about fixing the game, along with the description and price. High price, urgent, life-threatening, think carefully before accepting the order. The price was also $50,000. No wonder he was wrong. The young man silently rubbed his forehead. If he accepted, he was quite proficient with this type of work, but fixing games. He was not very good at this technique. But remembering that he was penniless right now, he touched the bandage wrapped tightly around his wrist. The wound was still bleeding. If he didn't accept the order again, then let alone cheap medical supplies like red medicine, he wouldn't even be able to buy candy.